All right, folks, had a little bit of a technical glitch there. When we cut out there, Garrett, you were talking about the second of you two overvalued picks in the draft for this year.
Well, Kellen Mond, he's a quarterback at Texas A&M, and I'm sure he's a nice guy and probably great to have a burger with. But I wouldn't, in my opinion, put a high pick on him or a valued pick on him. I think that he didn't show anything in the SEC and games at A&M that make me think he's going to be a really good quarterback. I think what happens with quarterbacks is that there gets to be such a rush on them, and people start worrying about, missing out on the next whoever, insert name here. And I think guys rise up a draft board way higher than their grade because of their quarterback, and teams miss out on good players and realize a lot of times they got them an average quarterback.
Yeah, well, it's a dilemma for all teams because obviously the importance of that pick is so high, but the importance of the position is so high. But again, sometimes you start reaching because of the need there as well.
Correct.
Okay, Kyle, you touched upon sort of the way this draft is going to follow. Of course, it's a consensus that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number one overall at Jacksonville. Zach Wilson likely number two. So that third pick is kind of where things could shift, and it's looking Mac Jones. What are you guys thinking about that third pick and how things are going to fall sort of beyond that?
Greg, it was back and forth, and some people were alluding to the fact that the 49ers were showing so much attention to Mac Jones. Not like they really had anybody to trick there, but some thought that maybe it was a smoke screen and they were going to take Trey Lance, the kid out of North Dakota State, and maybe let him spend a year under Garoppolo. And I have Trey Lance on my feast to famine list simply because the body of work isn't really there. He's got basically a season and a little bit. Tremendous talent, tremendous arm, all the skills you need. But again, you're talking a number 3 overall pick and getting a chance to sit behind Garoppolo, and not so much that he learned so much from Garoppolo as being in the league for a year, making that adjustment. He could be their guy going forward. Well, now, as of I think yesterday, Garoppolo is on the trading block. That's public information now, and that tells me everything you need to know that they're going to go with Mac Jones, which I think would be the right pick there. Again, this is a guy Garrett can tell you all kinds of things about, but I thought he was so impressive this year and just a heady player. He waited his turn, and when he got his shot and they gave him the football, so many people in Tuscaloosa thought that, he was going to start out the spring as their starter and they were going to go with the Bryce Petty kid coming up, or at the time, if Tua's younger brother stayed, maybe it would be him. He took the reins and never let him go. I think this kid is that smart of a player, that dedicated of a player, and understands the ins and outs, the details of everything he's doing. And to watch him set up coverages and watch him set up even the pocket, the way he slid in the pocket, to me, at that level, and he's only going to get better when it comes to that with more playing time in the league, leads me to believe that this is a no-brainer now, that the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones from the University of Alabama.
Yeah, you can expand upon that, Gary. You talked a little bit about in the first segment, but again, it seems like a good fit.
Yeah, no, it does. Kyle mentioned, and I'll mention, I know we're talking about the number 3 pick, but the guy who's projected to be the number 2 pick, Zach Wilson, is my feast or famine guy. I think he's a big-time feast or famine in a lot of ways. And really, I almost put him in my overvalued position. But as far as the number 3 overall pick, I am biased, just like I mentioned by Najee. I'm biased with Mac. I think if I wasn't, didn't have a relationship with Mac and didn't know him like I know him, I probably would be a little bit more like a lot of other people when it comes to him as far as, his critiques and his pluses and minuses. But I think he's, going to be a tremendous player. He's a guy that, he's got a burning, desire to win, and he's willed himself to be as good as he is. And even over the last year, he's made himself into quite the player. And I think there's a tug of war going on in that front office, probably with John Lynch being a general manager who's probably wanting more of the runner, from what I understand, just because, defensive guys are always worrying about, running quarterbacks. And Kyle is wants Mac, and Kyle actually has the final say so there. So, and don't ever discount that Kyle's old man isn't involved in this in a big way also. And so I think it's going to be Mac. I hope it's going to be Mac. And I think that would be the right choice. I'm not you can knock out these people for anything. You can say, I've heard people say, well, it's, Mac Jones has only started 17 games or whatever it is, but then it's never mentioned for one of the other guys that have only started 17 or 11. And, that people can pick people apart for what they want and all those things. And, I heard, well, Mac's playing with all those players at Alabama. Well, Tua was playing with more of them, and nobody said that about him. And last time I checked, Trevor Lawrence isn't throwing to me and Kyle out there, right? So I think he's throwing the top guys too. And I think they, if I haven't checked, but I would think that Ohio State's got some really good players that they're getting in every year too. So I think you use what you want. But yes, I think Mac's a heck of a player. I think he's going to make whatever team he goes to feel like that they made the right choice. That's kind of a burning feeling for him. So I feel he'll be the right choice at 3. I feel he'll be the right choice at 1, but again, I realize I'm biased.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, as you mentioned, you have to just trust the tape that you see, and certainly Mac has put together an impressive tape for sure. All right, guys, let's talk about, we'll jump into the Saints' perspective on this draft. Let's just talk about some of the intriguing spots and positions and players as down through the first round. I'll start with a guy that we have a lot of interest in here locally, and us being Rummel grads, me and Kyle, Ja'Marr Chase. Certainly an intriguing pick, probably the top wide receiver taken in this draft. There's some speculation and maybe some intrigue about him possibly reuniting with Joe Burrow, which would be interesting, the two Tigers together. But I think there's such a need there for offensive line. A lot of the mock drafts seem to have him to Miami. What do you guys think?
I think that's where he's going to end up. I don't know if, besides Devontae Parker, I don't know what else they really have there. They need to upgrade that part of their offense. Brian Flores is turned that thing around big time, and they're doing it with tough defense. They have another weapon on the field, another guy for Tua, if he's still the guy to throw to or whomever. Jamar's a real difference maker. You and I talked about this a bunch, Craig. If there's a player recently that he reminded me of, it was Dez Bryant, with his ability to just body shield a receiver and strong hands to go up and get it. And I have so much respect for the way he plays the game, the confidence he plays with. And there's a difference between confidence and being cocky. I thought the kid expected to catch every ball, win every play, win every game, which essentially is what happened in 2019. I thought a big reason for that team's personality, everybody says Joe Burrow, and certainly you can't diminish all the great things he brought to the table. But I thought the confidence that receiver room had was off the charts and led the rest of that team. And I think it started with him. I give credit to Justin Jefferson, of course, and Terrace Marshall certainly had his moments. But I think Ja'Marr Chase brought something that program hasn't seen from a confidence level at the receiver position and on that offense in a long, long time, and I'll never forget it.
I think Garrett on Ja'Marr and other intriguing players in the first round.
No, I think he was. I think first of all, what Kyle to say was spot on about, in a lot of ways they did lead that LSU Tiger team last year, and they were the kind of the inspirational force. I'm sure not only in games but in practice, they kept them going and motivated them and inspired them. So, the Bengals are a little interesting deal in this household because my youngest boy, the Saints and the Bengals are his two favorite teams. So Joe Burrow going there last year was, quite a big deal. So I think that the Bengals should go ahead and take Chase. I would take him and then come back later on in the draft and then get some linemen. They have a lot of linemen, even second, third, fourth round. But I think if you can it's about scoring points too, and having a quarterback, someone that he feels comfortable throwing to. But I think Chase is someone that he's gonna turn the draft. People aren't talking about that, but that Chase pick, whenever that happens, is gonna turn the draft because there's gonna be some people out there that are gonna be available that they thought they weren't gonna be available, or Chase, who they thought was gonna be available, is now not gonna be available.
Yeah.
I wouldn't discount somebody maybe trading up to get him, but if they don't, and you're the Bengals, I can't see how you pass on the Penei Sewell type of guy. That's just my opinion. And then the Falcons at 4, there's talk of them trading out of that spot. There's also talk of them trading Julio Jones today. And it's not out there that they're shopping him, but that they wouldn't. And how does that leak? Because they want to shop him probably. If that's the case, then I think they're going to go with Kyle Pitts out of Florida if they trade Julio Jones before the draft and pick up another early pick to help bolster their defense, which because they don't have one basically. But don't discount Terry Fontenot knowing exactly what Terry Spott with the Saints was director of pro player personnel, and he was as good as anybody in the league in knowing the players that are in this league. And that's what leads to winning trades. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them if they trade Julio Jones, grab a defender and a pick, and then take Kyle Pitts, and they'll play him at tight end, but they'll play him out in the slot too. He's that kind of weapon. So.
Yeah, it'd be an intriguing pick. I know that, you mentioned it's just hard to be in that spot 4, 5, or 6 and pass on Jamar, especially after he ran that 4.40. That really solidified what a lot of people thought was a very physical receiver as a speed guy as well. So it's going to be a tough one to see. Any other intriguing picks late in the first round or things you think may flip this round?
Again, I think a lot of it, to me, I go back to Najee. Does somebody else see what we think we all see? Is he a Derrick Henry type player that can be the absolute focal point of your offense in a league where the running backs aren't always the focal points of the offense like they used to be? It's very rare, as a matter of fact. Kamara, yeah. Christian McCaffrey, maybe, yeah. Is Najee, he's not that type of back, but Derrick Henry is. He reminds me of Derrick Henry with a little bit more shake and bake to his game. And so I think
I tell you, it'd be interesting too is if someone takes an ATN and late, and a guy like that is a little bit of a niche player, and putting him in a system with someone that and I'm not saying I know exactly who, but you can get down later in there and maybe an offense that's looking for a guy to get the ball to that can make things happen. Not that the Saints don't have this, but from a running back position, but they don't have someone that they can throw a 5-yard hitch pass to that can make somebody miss. We don't have people that create pressure on the perimeter. So I think a guy like Etienne, a team later on in the first round, and may say, hey, look, here's a guy that can create pressure, through coming out of the backfield, catching the ball, and maybe we don't have that right now. Might be a great fit for someone.
I think Jacksonville or the Bills takes him.
I'm going to keep an eye on Justin Fields. I just think that, the variety of different thoughts and opinions on where he's going to go and how high he should go is going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the first round of the draft.
What's the problem? What's the knock on this kid? I don't get it. This is just me, Garrett. I want to hear your input on this. I was completely impressed with everything about him, and you can't give me the best team and everybody else don't, because the same thing Burrow did, same thing Mac Jones. It's along those lines. Is it because he's seizure prone with, they mentioned epilepsy, and maybe that's something, but I haven't seen him have a seizure on the field in Columbus, and I thought the kid played his butt off, and I don't get why he would drop like he did. What am I missing, Coach?
Well, what goes on is that agents play games, right? So I'm going to say the agent for Trey Lance just say, oh, you name a quarterback. These big, powerful agents, they put out there, they have general managers or scouts that are kind of in their pocket, so to speak, of people on ESPN, right? These people on ESPN, they getting some insider stuff from some of these agents, right? The agents, okay, now it's time for you to do things for me. So I think sometimes the agents of some of the top players will use it, put it out to knock a guy down. So their guy will stay up in the first round or stay ahead of him. And I think that they were trying to hide it. And then I think that's why he came out with it. And, but I think that, you know, a lot of dirty pool is played late in the situation. And sometimes teams play, as you've heard before, teams put stuff out just to hope that a kid will slide, or you know, somebody will say, well, maybe I shouldn't take him. Right now, it's, you know, it's like from when you played marbles when you were younger, it's for keeps, right? So whatever it takes is whatever it takes. I think, you know, when it comes out late like this, I think that's what it is. I like Fields a lot. Again, it's hard though for me to like someone better than I like Mac, because
I know, and look, that cat's out of the bag.
but let me say this. Let me say this to you, okay? Let me say this to you. And the guy who's getting a free pass here is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I know he had the little thing about, well, you know, I don't want to, you know, I'm not 24/7 football. I get it, but that's blah, blah, blah. Okay. And we won't get into the fact that if someone else besides Trevor Lawrence would have said that, it would have been a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's be honest about that. But he is getting a pass. His offense now, I watched their offense on film many times when he was at Clemson, was very simplistic. You can see it on many Saturday games on many different levels in college football, and you can see it definitely on many, many Friday night games in high school football across this country. So my point to you being that he's not as sophisticated in a college offense as a lot of these other guys are that you're mentioning, and even Trey Lance, who's in a pro system. And I think he's getting a pass, and they've ran a very simplistic offense, and they had better players than 90% of the people they were playing. So it'll be really interesting. Plus, he's going to go to a bad team and a bad organization and a college coach who's trying to figure out how to be a pro coach. And so that'll be interesting. But I'm not so sure that you know, Sunshine going to Jacksonville is going to be the guy that everybody says he is. He's the only guy that's kind of come out unscathed in this whole him. And I will say this too, and I know I'm going to my soapbox a little bit, but Zach Wilson, same thing. You know what I mean? I hear about how he's throwing off of this platform and then off of this angle and falling away here and all that. But guess what? On Sunday nights, after the news is off, you know, SportsCenter is off, and they have all these recap shows, and on Mondays and Monday mornings, I never hear anybody talking about, boy, did you see that platform he threw off of? And did you see how they talk about wins, moving chains, no interceptions, no turnovers, scoring touchdowns, leading your team? Those are the things that people want to talk about and hear about on Sundays, and that's usually about the people who did or did not win. They never say, man, did you see him throwing off of that platform going backwards on one arm? Wow, that's awesome. That's not what people talk about.
I'll tell you that on my most overvalued list, and we were running short on time in the first segment, so I limited to one, but the next player I had up was Zach Wilson. His best games, in the whole time he's been a starter in BYU, were those that season where he was playing only within his conference, which is not a Power 5 conference.
Right.
His games outside of that conference were nearly as impressive as the games he had when he was in it. And I get it, but the disparaging, the distance was so disparaging that I'm just telling you that I think he's way overvalued at 2. And I'll tell you something, I've been saying the same thing all along. The reason you're not hearing him talk about Trevor Lawrence and anything else, because that's a foregone conclusion. It's not drama. It's not, they're taking him number 1 and everybody knows it. Why in goodness gracious are they going to start picking him apart? Most of the things that these talking heads are going on about is where they're falling in the draft, and that's not a question. I agree with you. I think he's got a long, wind-up, slow delivery that the NFL defensive backs, that gap is not that much.
Yeah.
That gap is not big enough to mask that. You know, it's the total opposite throwing motion of a guy named Dan Marino. I think he drops the ball and picks it up and throws it. I've watched this from day one. I thought it was something he would correct in his years at Clemson, and I didn't really see much of a change. Not going to change his throwing motion now, Jack. Ain't going to happen. So I have a few questions about him too. I don't think he's the surefire lock that Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck was coming out, like some people are saying he's the highest graded quarterback since then.
Yeah.
Them,
Yeah.
size, speed, arm strength, hey, that's all there. You got to have a quick release in this league, and he doesn't.
Yeah. All right, folks, moving on to the New Orleans Saints draft. It seems to be the consensus that the Saints really need to solidify the cornerback or the linebacker position. Of course, cornerback, we lose Janoris Jenkins to cap considerations. Linebacker, we need somebody now with Anzalone going free agent and Kwan Alexander out with the injury and now on the outs to play opposite to Mario Davis. So some of the names I hear thrown around, the kid Farley from Virginia Tech who sat out. There's a kid by the name of Newsom from Northwestern at cornerback. We got Collins at Tulsa, linebacker, Davis at Kentucky, linebacker. Which position you guys think go, and who are some of the names that intrigue you?
I think that in my little mock, I have Greg Newsom, if he's there, going to them from Northwestern. There's a tall, rangy corner who can really, really run. Got a little bit of that Jabari Greer in him. A guy who's a smart football player who can really move and turn and run with the best of them. The only knock on Newsom to me is that he's like a lot of speed guys. He's had the groin and the hamstring injuries throughout college. Look, same thing about Marshawn Lattimore when he was coming in. That was the problem. You get him with an NFL facility, an NFL training staff, and I think you can eliminate a lot of those problems because we did it with Marshawn Lattimore right here in New Orleans. I think that if he's there, that's the guy. I like Farley too. I think his back's going to be fine. It is a little bit of a pink flag. I won't call it a red flag, but it's something to watch out for, but he won't be there. Don't be shocked. I don't want to see this, but don't be shocked if Peyton goes off the reservation and grabs Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, an electric type of player who'll give us that downfield threat that we have. The only reason I say I hope I don't see it, I would love for him to be in the black and gold, is we don't have another corner. But also true to the Saints' history under Peyton and Loomis, under Loomis all the way along, they're not going to reach for a position. They're going to take the best player available. One more name to throw at you, Zaven Collins. I'll give you my 1, 2, 3, 4 real fast. Greg Newsom if he's there, Zaven Collins if he's there, Elijah Moore if he's there, and if they need a corner that bad and they may have this guy rated high enough, Tyson Campbell out of Georgia is a guy who's can do anything. Super fast, a track guy who knows how to play football, or a football player who runs track. Super fast, high-end athlete. Plays best when the big lights are on. The only knock on him is when you have a big lead, he'll doze off a little bit and the mental part of the game. I don't know that happens in an NFL secondary with guys like Malcolm Jenkins and Marcus Williams kind of sort of telling you what's up. But I think Greg Newsom's the guy if he's there, Craig. 4'3", 840, big, tall guy, can turn and run with all the receivers.
Got it. How about you, Gary? Any thoughts on the Saints' first pick?
Well, let me just say this to you. I would not touch Farley. I'm not big on taking guys who have back issues. And that's what he had, right?
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't touch him. God bless him. Hope the best for him, but I wouldn't touch him and put some money in on him. I like Greg Newsom for a number of reasons, all the things that everybody's mentioned, and obviously, you know, he's a smart kid and goes to a good university and has, you know, my choice would be Greg Newsom because of a need for us, and he's a good player. But I got to tell you, I got a quote unquote man crush, quote unquote linebacker coach crush on Zaven Collins, and I've been watching him, you know, during the season, and I just, I got a big time crush on him. So it wouldn't hurt my feelings that if they got him, I think he'd be a great player for us. But you have to be able to cover pass catchers in a pass catching, pass throwing league. And if you can't, then you're going to get run out of the gym. So I think that, you know, you have to, if Newsom's on the board, you have to take him. And I would.
Yeah, and of course with the Saints, there's always the possibility they could, if there's a guy they really like, they could move up some spots to make sure that they get that pick that they really want.
Mac Jones.
Hey.
Hey, Craig, one thing I do know is that, you know, in the last 24 hours, Newsom's stock is really rising. So the painful thing for us would probably be that, you know, he was supposed to be there at 28. Now they know they're not. They would have gotten him if things would have stayed status quo, which they never do. So if they're going to have to move up to get the guy they were going all along, yeah, that would be a little bit of a stinger. But if they don't like what they have, they will trade out of that pick and pick up multiple picks in that next round, and you'll see him maybe come away with a Tyler Campbell and a Jamin Davis or something along those lines. So I think they need to bolster that defense. Sean Payton's never got his eye floor off the offense. So a guy like Rondell Moore maybe in the second round if Elijah Moore's not there and you solve your situation at corner. Juan Alexander, I have a strange feeling is going to be back playing for the Saints this year too. I know you can't get a full season out of him, it seems. Zach Vaughn is the wild card in that linebacker room. He's switching from a 3-4 defense where he played a lot of hand in the dirt OLB to the Saints defense. Let's see what he does this year when he gets to camp because he's an exceptional athlete.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just whenever I think about the Saints drafting a cornerback, I think about I'm still in shock that we picked Alec Molden instead of
Eddie George.
Eddie George, but that's okay.
Molden's son is in this draft, you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I wouldn't pick him just because of how Chris Clark, but
One more.
I have a friend of mine that I can still picture how he was just totally in dismay when that came across.
Yeah.
Did not believe it.
Yeah, Eddie had some good years in fantasy football for me for sure. One more.
Yeah. You know, he was a guy who probably was a sleeper coming out. Nobody knew about him when he was coming out. That's why the Saints didn't pick him.
Just a Heisman Trophy. How can you worry about him?
Listen, I guess, you know, he just kind of slipped, you know, right under the radar for most teams. I mean, why would you know about the Heisman Trophy winner?
Yeah.
Well, when your son's a defensive back coach, you got to take care of.
Yeah, when your son's a DB coach.
Exactly.
Right.
You got to put the whole organization behind 5 years.
But wait a minute, we made up for it by taking Gerard Cherry in this round.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Let me get us back on track here. One more Saints question. We'll wrap it up, guys. Two intriguing things for me with the Saints. I think they could draft anywhere they lost a lot of depth with the salary cap issues and stuff, but I think they could go anywhere and add some depth in the later rounds. But two intriguing things for me. Kylie touched upon it. Do they feel like they have a needed wide receiver, deep threat, or do they think one of these guys under the right quarterback will develop? And number two, there's talk at quarterback maybe in a later position, a later round that they might draft as a developmental guy. Any thoughts on those two positions with the Saints?
I do. One, for the first time, yes, I think the cupboard is bare as far as guys that can stretch the field, and you need to have somebody that will. Look, it may be a fourth-round pick who's got decent hands and can run and is unpolished that you can use situationally. That tips your hand, but that may be what he does. As far as the second question about, you know, quarterback future, keep an eye on Ian Book from Notre Dame. Just a couple of people we talked to, and Garrett and I sat with someone the other night who seemed to think that the Saints, Sean Payton has a little twinkle in his eye when he looks at the Ian Book kid out of Notre Dame. And this is a pretty athletic quarterback. You know, I don't know, can't tell you a whole lot more about him, how accurate he is. I think his arm's strong enough. But for a later round guy, don't be shocked if they take a flyer on him. And I wouldn't mind seeing that. See what you get there.
All right, guys. Anything else before we wrap it up?
No.
I want to say one thing. Hang on, Gary. I want to say one thing before we go further. You know, we're talking about all these guys at 1 and 2 and then this and that. You know, the two best quarterbacks in the history of this league, a lot of people will tell you is either Tom Brady or Joe Montana. And one was drafted in the 6th round, the other was taken in the 3rd.
Hey, can I throw out somebody, if you don't mind, if you have a couple of minutes off of the script a little bit?
Go ahead.
Is that a yes or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
There's a kid, when I was at Western Kentucky a couple of years ago, we had a kid named D'Angelo Malone. Okay. They have him at 6'2.5", 233, outside linebacker, 4.66 speed. That is a kid that if he gets in the right situation, he, you know, maybe not his first year, but boy, he's got a natural knack for sacking the quarterback and rushing the passer. And he was always just a little bit undersized, couldn't get weight on and all that kind of stuff. But man, he's got a knack for slipping, accelerating, closing the distance once he gets on the edge of the blocker to really shut down and get to the quarterback. And so he's someone in the later rounds. Just keep an eye on where he might go and keep an eye on him because he's a guy that is the kind of guy that we've talked about. Saints, maybe the linebacker guy you can, project and develop and give you that outside pass rushing kind of mode also.
Right. All right, guys, I want to wrap it up. First, I want to give Garrett, again, thank you for coming on with ISG Nation, give us your inside thoughts, and also tell us a little bit more about your academy and more information.
So I appreciate it. And anytime, love being on with you guys. So basically, Ochsner, as we all know, Ochsner Hospital, but Ochsner has an Ochsner performance training wing to it, branch to it, in which there's strength and speed and conditioning for boys and girls who are in sports or in activities that require those kind of movements. And as a kind of a spinoff from that performance training has become the Football Academy. And so basically we train young men and girls, women in the art and science of playing football. And so we just don't take a couple of cones and have them run back and forth and throw a ball to them at the end. We don't call, in one drill when you got a DB, it's a DB drill. When the next guy's a receiver, you say, oh, it's a receiver drill. It's the same drill. We really get into the art and science of playing a position, whether it's running back, linebacker, DB, quarterback. And I teach them like I would be teaching them if they were getting ready to, and the drills and the things, the techniques I teach them is like we were getting ready to go play USC in the LA Coliseum or UCLA in the Rose Bowl or Texas in Darrell K. Royal Stadium. And I coach them hard out there, but we get these kids ready to play the game. Ochsner's been great. They really want to build up the game of football. It's been torn down so many times in the last several years. And they're looking to build it up at the ground level. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm enjoying every bit of, selling our game, reselling our game again to parents and the kids and getting kids involved in the best game there is. But I have everybody from middle school up through high school. Have a couple of Roma Raiders that I, do some things with, and from almost every high school around. And as I mentioned, a couple of state schools, and as far as the colleges and then Max. So I've got the myriad of people that I deal with, and I'm enjoying every bit of it. But it's great to be around the middle school kids, and it's great to be around the high school kids. Everybody says, hey, well, what about this guy and that guy? Well, I've had my fill, thankfully. The good Lord's allowed me to be around a lot of 4 and 5 star kind of guys, and I've coached myself over a dozen kids that have played in the league. And so that's great, and I've scratched that itch, but I really enjoy helping the kids start. And sometimes, it's just as important as that kid getting a scholarship or whatever. Some families, a kid starting his senior year in high school is just as important and just as big and just as memorable to that family for a lifetime. So I enjoy helping these kids meet their dreams and being the best that they can be.
That's great, Garrett. Well, it's certainly a great service you guys provide. And it's exciting because you can have such an impact, not just even beyond the field when they're that age, and to help them fundamentally, which is so important as well. No,
it's great. It's great. And love for people, they're interested in some sort of performance training. It's like I said, there's nothing to do with football. Please get in touch with us at Ochsner Performance Training. But if you're interested in you becoming a better football player, your son or daughter becoming a better football player, please get in touch with us. Would love to help them.
Kyle, some final thoughts?
Real quick, I wanted to mention 2 other guys who I keep going back and forth on. I had them on my overvalued, undervalued list. So ultimately, I want feast at famine. Both defensive ends.
Make it quick.
University of Miami, Jalen Fields, Greg Russo, super great athletes, need to get in the weight room. Might just be the difference of a college strength and conditioning program versus NFL. Both super high-end athletes, need to work on stopping the run. Great pass rushers, play well. Wrap it up, Craigie.
Sounds good. Of course, before we go, we want to mention our sponsors, Brian Scheck, State Farm, for all your insurance needs on Causeway Boulevard in Metairie. Luca Eats for your uptown eats, so you can take it on the go, eat out on the patio. And also Grumpy Dog Kombucha, big taste and easy drinking. Again, we'll have another show for the ISG Nation after the draft. We'll kind of give an evaluation of who we think did well in the draft, who did poorly, and of course, most importantly, how the Saints did. And of course, again, thank you to Garrett Sashery. The invitation is always open, Garrett. Love having you.
Greg, I appreciate it. Listen, if you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
someone wants to get in touch with me or look at some of the things, it's at Quarterback Lab, capital Q, capital L, one word, Quarterback Lab, at Quarterback Lab for Twitter, and The Quarterback Lab, all one word, for Instagram.
Got it.
And then my number is 504-258-9269. 504-258-9269, and the email is garrett.sashery@ochsner.org.
All right, we'll get all those on the Facebook page for the ISG Nation when we put these videos up as well. So again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the ISG Nation for joining us once again in our virtual Zoom show. We are
The Italian Sports Guys.
Bada boom.
Bada bing.